Thank you, Chairman Hurd and Palmer, along with Ranking Members Kelly and Demings, for convening today's important hearing. The sanctity and security of our election systems are the bedrock of our republic. The American people need to know, not just believe, but they need to know for certain that their votes are counted fairly. My home state of Illinois was one of 21 states that the Department of Homeland Security informed us was targeted by hackers in June of 2016. The NSA reported that personal files for over 90,000 Illinois voters were illegally downloaded by Russian hackers. Mr. Krebs, do you have any reason to dispute the NSA's findings that Russian-affiliated entities were behind the recent election data breaches?
I'm unfortunately not able to comment on that specific disclosure. That I unfortunately would have to defer to the NSA.
But do you have any reason to believe that they're incorrect about that?
I'm not certain of the nature of the report you're discussing. I unfortunately would have to, again, defer to the NSA to comment specifically on,
right, you
on the
defer
details.
to the NSA because they are expert in this particular matter, and they have the intelligence and the ability to ascertain whether these data breaches occurred and who was the source of these data breaches, correct?
Again, I would defer to the NSA on any discussion here.
Sure. While the implications, and you're correct to defer to them, while the implication of Russia's attack on one of our election systems are concerning, what I find even more disturbing is that it was part of a broader international campaign to undermine Western democracies, such as the 2017 elections in France and Germany, as well as recent elections in the UK and other NATO countries. Now, Mr. Krebs, again, I'd like to ask you a follow-up question. Can you assure me that DHS is working with our allies and the broader international community, the intelligence community, to develop a coordinated response to these incursions?
So what I can speak to is the nature of the Department of Homeland Security's engagements with our international partners. Immediately before the French election, we reached out to the CERT, the French CERT, which is the Computer Emergency Response Team, keeping in mind that my responsibilities in this space are, frankly, two things: information sharing and technical support on a voluntary basis. So information sharing with the state and locals, and also information sharing with the French CERT. In terms of a broader strategy for pushing back, I'd have to defer to the interagency or the White House on that.
Earlier this month, the President said that he took Vladimir Putin at his word that he did not interfere, and Russia did not interfere in the 2016 election. Quote unquote, he said, "Every time he sees me, he says, 'I didn't do that.' And I really believe that when he tells me that, he means it," quote unquote. Mr. Krebs, just a few minutes ago, you couldn't point to any reason or dispute. You have no reason to believe that the NSA's conclusions with regard to Russian hacking were inaccurate or incorrect. You defer to the NSA's conclusions. Are you saying that the President is somehow wrong to take Putin at his word as opposed to deferring to the NSA's conclusions on this particular topic?
So I'd like to clarify one thing real quick. I have said all along that I agree with the intelligence community's assessment that the Russians attempted to interfere with our elections.
Good.
What you spoke about earlier was some report attributed to the NSA about a specific state. That is what I deferred to the NSA on. I am unable to comment on that. That is not within my remit. I am focused on information sharing, technical assistance and support to the state and locals. We are in a support role. Now, to your other comment.
Well, let me reclaim some of my time here. You answered the question correctly, in my view, which is that you agree that the Russians did interfere in our 2016 election, or you at least agree with the intelligence community, which knows what it's talking about, that the Russians did interfere in our 2016 election. So are you saying that the President is wrong to disagree with that conclusion and instead take the word of Vladimir Putin that Russia did not interfere in our elections?
No, sir. I said I agree with the assessment of the intelligence community on what happened in 2016.
Okay. Do you agree with the President that in his assessment that Vladimir Putin did not actually interfere in our election?
Sir, I was not privy to that conversation. Look, I'm focused on helping state and local governments for next year. Every one of us recognize that there is a threat, whether it's from Russia, China, North Korea, or Iran.
You're not answering the question, sir.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to be privy to that question. You don't have to be privy to that conversation to be able to answer the question. Do you agree with his assessment that Russia did not interfere in our elections?
Sir, again, I'll point back to last year's intelligence assessment.
Okay, I'll take that as a non-answer.